a successful counterattack by the Ukrainian Armed Forces in the Dnipropetrovsk region. Russia has lost more than 1% of its entire male population in the war. While Putin is castrating his commoners, the children of Russian generals are burning through millions vacationing in Europe. An epic strike by Ukrainian drones and missiles on the Russia in Donbass command post. This is something you have to see. Sipu sends greetings to Trump. Joint military exercises between China and Russia are aimed against the United States. Echoes of the Naked Party. The tax authorities have started shaking down the king of pop, Philipp Kirkorov. Solovyov threatens to take out EU leadership in the bathrooms. Ukraine has its own ears in the Kremlin. A sensational confession. The head of the main intelligence directorate, Budanov, is eavesdropping on Putin. The Kremlin betrayed Larisa Dolina, and she has become an enemy of the people. Hello everyone, my name is Fedor Shirenko, and now we will discuss with you all the most important and high-profile topics that people are talking about in the world and in Ukraine. And of course, beyond the edge of civilization, about everything that's trending. Let's go! A successful counterattack by Ukrainian heroes. The armed forces of Ukraine have liberated the village of Taika in the Dnipropetrovsk region, according to the 67th Mechanized Brigade. Earlier, in the 20s of November, the occupiers were flaunting their rags in the Alexandrovsk direction and claimed that the Vostok group had occupied Tika and Otradne. The 67th Mechanized Brigade reported that Tika was cleared of occupiers thanks to coordinated actions and competent planning. The epic destruction of a command post of the occupiers. Ukrainian FP-1 and FP-2 drones, as well as the Flamingo cruise missile, struck the occupied Sontsevka in Donetsk region. According to Ukrainian military sources, the target was successfully hit. The command post of Russia's 90th Tank Division.
I like how it burns, how people are running around, how the fire trucks arrive. Well, people are in shock. Their eyes are practically popping out.
New packages of sanctions have landed in the Saratov region. Residents of Engels and Saratov reported explosions. According to preliminary information, a fire broke out at the local oil depot in Engels. In addition to Engels, Rostov was also hit. Locals are complaining about damage to power lines. Hundreds of people have been left without electricity.
Quieter? No, not at all.
There are no losses, but in the local assaults, more than 1% of Russia's entire pre-war male population has perished. This was reported by The Economist. Taking into account the data from the last pre-war census of 2020 to 2021, which indicated that more than 68 million men lived in Russia, the number of Russian military personnel killed could exceed 680,000 people. In total, according to the publication's estimates, Russian losses, killed and wounded, amount to between 1 and almost 1.4 million soldiers and officers. This is more than the number of American soldiers killed or wounded during World War II. At the same time, since February 2022, Moscow has occupied 1.4% of Ukraine's territory. In other words, for the occupation of just over 1% of the territory, more than 1% of Russia's men have been laid to rest forever in Ukrainian soil. Meanwhile, while Russian generals are sending rank-and-file occupiers to meet Kobzon in droves, their own children, instead of the trenches, they send them on tours around enemy Europe. A young woman boasting about her vacation in NATO countries, Anastasia Tokareva. She is the daughter of one of the commanders of the 5th Combined Arms Army of the Russian Armed Forces, Major General Alexander Tokarev. Since February 2022, the 22-year-old graduate of the Ministry of Defense boarding school has visited at least 3 European Union countries. 2 of them are North Atlantic Treaty Organization members, namely France and Italy, as well as Austria. On her blog, the daughter of the Russian butcher tells her followers that getting a visa is not difficult. According to her, Europe's economy is struggling without Russian tourists. But the daughter of the Russian general doesn't leave Europeans in a tough spot. According to Anastasia herself, vacations in European countries cost her 1 million rubles. First, her maniac and killer father makes money from occupation, murder, and destruction. And then his daughter spends this honestly earned money. Her belly feasts in Parisian and Roman restaurants.
Did she fly out? Where did she fly to? She knows about things that don't exist, you see? Well, the main thing, she flew out. At least she has something to fly on. The main thing there was always a broom, right?
Ukrainian ears in the Kremlin. The GUR not only destroys occupiers at the front, but also monitors and listens to the Russian leadership deep in the rear. In a conversation with Ukrainian journalists, Budanov stated that Ukrainian intelligence agents are wiretapping high-ranking Kremlin officials.
Kirilo Alexeyevich, to what extent do we have the ability to eavesdrop on our high-ranking enemies in the Kremlin? Please tell us, is there such an ability or not? What kind of ability? To listen in? To wiretap our high-ranking enemies? Is there such an ability? Isn't that what we're paid for?
Let me remind you that at the end of November, Bloomberg published a transcript of leaked calls between Ushakov, Witkov, and Dmitriev. Ukraine officially denied involvement in the leak. The wiretapping of Ushakov revealed Russian influence on the peace plan, sparked a scandal in the West, accelerated the blocking of WhatsApp in Russia, and disrupted part of the negotiations. Xi Jinping sends his warm regards to Donald Trump and his intentions to rein in Putin. Russia and China conducted joint military exercises on Russian territory. According to Reuters, citing the Chinese Ministry of Defense, Moscow and Beijing conducted joint anti-missile exercises in early December. This is already the third military exercise in the past few months. Last month, the two countries held talks on missile defense and strategic stability. And in August, there were artillery and anti-submarine exercises in the Sea of Japan. Reuters sources report that both China and Moscow have expressed concern over US President Donald Trump's plans to build an anti-missile shield, the Golden Dome, and his stated intention to resume nuclear weapons testing after a break of more than 30 years. Blackout in Belgorod. Russian aviation is operating. Russian aircraft dropped bombs on a substation in the Belgorod region. Power outages have begun in the city center. There is a large crater at the site of the strike. The area was cordoned off for emergency services to work.
So here's the turn onto the lane, the far one. Here it landed, a little crater.
The Kremlin is threatening to wipe out the leadership of the European Union. Putin's favorite parrot, the marshal of Russian propaganda, got overly excited amid discussions in Europe about confiscating frozen Russian assets.
This act of attempting to seize funds, first of all, once and for all, shows us that the EU as a structure is a thieving terrorist organization. Therefore, we must expel anyone connected to it from here. Sever all relations with official EU structures, review any existing laws, declare them a terrorist organization, and based on that, pursue them as we do terrorists.
The spiteful Solovyov recalled the phrase that first brought Putin popularity about dealing with terrorists in the restroom. And now, 26 years later, Putin's Solovyov is threatening to kill Kaja Kallas and Ursula von der Leyen.
Declare Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas as terrorists. And we'll find him in the toilet, and we'll soak him. That is, we are dealing with a Nazi terrorist entity.
Promote war, killings in toilets, the seizure of other people's land, and become an influential and respected person. The Financial Times has named the most influential people of 2025. The head of the RT Media holding, Margarita Simonyan, made it onto the annual list of people who changed the world. The reputable publication calls her the most loyal envoy of Vladimir Putin and the Valkyrie of Russian propaganda. In response, Simonyan at first openly rejoiced at the recognition, but then, so as not to lose face, after all, the publication is still an enemy one, she called the company she found herself in controversial. In
this year's list of leaders, according to the Financial Times, besides me, there is also the head of British intelligence, the White House chief of staff, and the mayor of New York. A controversial company.
And in a sense, with the publication, it's hard to argue. Simonyan is indeed one of the most influential people, but only in terms of negative influence on the world. Actually, I have another Russian candidate for the Financial Times list next year. In my opinion, she's a very worthy competitor to Babretka. just as unscrupulous, immoral, and bloodthirsty.
We've got a passenger plane sending out a distress signal here. And to be honest, my colleague and I were saying if only something would finally happen so we could actually work in real emergency mode. On
the footage, you see Evgenia Abalashvili, a journalist from Sobyanin's propaganda channel Moscow 24. Together with her colleagues, she hopes that something will happen to the Moscow-Phuket plane that sent out a distress signal and that the passengers will end up as minced meat.
Right, Ilyuk? You actually want it to be a real mess, huh? Yeah, look at how pleased he looks. Dasha, don't you want it to be a mess too? There you go.
Nordwind special website. Got it. I completely understand that. Here.
Nordwind, grab it. I want it.
But much to the deep disappointment of Russian journalists, Russians only get turned into minced meat in the war with Ukraine. They failed to profit off the deaths of their fellow citizens. The Red Wings flight incident happened on December 4th. After takeoff, the plane's engine caught fire. It returned to Domodedovo and landed safely. But what can you expect from Russian media prostitutes when even state emergency services exploit and hype up terrible tragedies? The official Telegram channel of Russia's Ministry of Emergency Situations decided to use reports about children injured in a fire as bait to advertise the Kremlin's messenger app, Max. No matter how much you try to shift the blame, you'll still have to pay the price for taking part in a naked party. In Russia, the tax authorities have gone after Philipp Kirkorov. According to Russian media, the tax authorities have shut down one of the companies. The singer Philipp Kirkorov. The company's accounts have been frozen. LLC Philipp Kirkorov Corporation was registered in Krasnogorsk, Moscow region in August 2019. It was engaged in activities in the field of performing arts. Filia's company had its accounts frozen. Now, court bailiffs are collecting a debt from Kirkorov's company.
There are indeed moments in everyone's life when, unfortunately, you walk through the absolutely wrong door.
From love to hate. One Step or Precedent by Larisa Dolina. At first, the authorities stood up for the singer and returned to her the apartment that had been taken by scammers. And then they literally threw her into the hands of an enraged crowd, refusing to stand up to the public's anger. People were outraged that, as a result of this return, a single mother suffered, losing all the money she had paid for the property.
The scale of public outrage is just as incredible. People are returning tickets to her concerts. Fast food restaurants are refusing to deliver food to that ill-fated building in Kamovniki, punishing the other residents as well. Harsh? Maybe. But is it fair? Absolutely. And one of Moscow's top restaurants, Pushkin restaurant on Tverskoy Boulevard, has already replaced Dolina with Angelika Varum for New Year's Eve. Can you imagine the crowd at Pushkin restaurant on New Year's Eve? These are officials, security forces, state business people, and definitely not from the lower ranks. The same propagandists. They're with the people, supposedly. Now listening to Larisa Dolina is unpleasant for them. In
short, bad weather is guaranteed in Dolina's house. And you definitely can't fix it with an umbrella. Russian laziness and ingenuity in all their glory. In Chelyabinsk, a supermarket security guard tried to send shopping carts down the escalator. Let's see how that turned out.